Gaurie Dwivedi. Let's kickstart the show with some headlines this Monday evening. First up, China-Russia complete first round of joint military drills. The drills aim to deepen cooperation and address security threat that the two nations feel. United States pledges $200 million in fresh aid to Bangladesh. The aid is expected to support inclusive growth and economic support to Bangladesh. India's US drone deal faces scrutiny. India to buy 31 MQ-9B drones from the United States. Houthis had shot down 10 MQ drones this year. Scores dead in Myanmar from flooding after Typhoon Yagi. At least 320,000 people have been displaced, over 100 people dead and 64 still missing. India to send $1,000 of aid to flood-hit Laos. Aid to include 10 tons of relief material and medical supplies for the nation. All right, the first story on India Global that we're addressing right now is the latest as far as Bangladesh is concerned. Now, Bangladesh has been a country that's been in flux since the 5th of August when Sheikh Hasina fled Dhaka. And since then, the country has been coming to terms with the turmoil it faced. Now, the latest is that the country has got over $200 million of fresh aid from the United States. Senior officials of the US State Department visited Bangladesh, and besides the aid package that has been given to Dhaka, several other issues were also discussed, including the reform roadmap that Yunus's government has in place that will pave the way for democratic credentials and the democratic framework to be restored. And that's the big question that we are asking right now, that as United States increases and gives fresh aid to Bangladesh, is it looking at a larger role? Remember, Sheikh Hasina had made some very sweeping allegations about 8 months back that there could be an alleged role of United States in that region. With US's fresh aid package, those allegations, do they need to be addressed? Is America looking to play a larger role? Remember, Mohammed Yunus also shares a good rapport with senior members of the United States administration. Where does this leave India? What is the US India-Bangladesh equation set to be now? Is India also going to look to make fresh aid and line of credit offers and disbursements to Bangladesh? That's the big question that we will be discussing on India Global. But first up, let's get my colleague Mohammad Ghazali to fill us in with the very latest. Mohammad, appreciate you joining us to take us through what we can expect as far as the next course of action in Bangladesh is concerned. This meeting by the State Department officials is very crucial. New Delhi is keeping a very close watch on. Tell me, what are your sources telling you on this?
See, this particular meeting was expected last week. The State Department had issued a statement that how a delegation from the United States will go to Bangladesh and will meet the higher functionaries there, including Mohammed Yunus, the chief advisor of the interim government there. And besides the aid package, though the State Department officials or the statement claim that perhaps this aid will bring inclusive to check the growth, declining growth there, and Bangladesh's economy had taken a hit after the Russia-Ukraine war started, and to just for the course correction, Mr. Yunus was asking for aid, and in a televised address last Tuesday also, he had appealed for $5 billion aid. But when Bangladeshi experts were contacted, perhaps they thought that Bangladesh's interim the chief advisor of the interim government was only asking aid from the international organizations, and he didn't want a bilateral support. But US is stepping in with this aid is very significant because, as you rightly pointed out, just a couple of months ago when Sheikh Hasina was facing a lot of rebellion, she had hinted that perhaps there could be an involvement, or this entire rebellion could be engineered by one of the US State Department officials. That was a grave allegation. No no clarification or sort of comment was given by the US State Department about it. But this meeting is very significant considering the point that US also wants to involve itself with the new administration there. Earlier, the Bangladesh watchers perhaps said that Mr. Yunus will not seek any aid from neighboring countries, but with this significant aid coming from US, perhaps more countries are also expected to gain dominance in Bangladesh by providing them aid.
Absolutely. Mohammad Ghazali, appreciate you joining us on India Global this Monday evening. Let's open this up. Ayanjit Sen, international affairs expert with me on the show. We also have Dr. Ashikur Rahman, principal economist, Policy Research Institute of Bangladesh. Dr. Rahman, let me start with you, sir. As things stand, in the last 1 month, Dr. Mohammad Yunus, when he took over as the advisor, he mentioned that he was in favor of aid coming in from international agencies and not so much from bilateral aid arrangements. Why the change? And does this indicate a larger role for United States in the present dispensation?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I think this particular US aid, the pipeline was started in 2001. And $1 billion was committed under USAID program, out of which Bangladesh has already received $450 million. So the $202 million that has been promised under that pipeline is basically adding to that 450 that has already been received, and another 300 million that is owed under that pipeline. So it's, Bangladesh has a line of credit with India, and Bangladesh has a line of credit with China, and USAID also had a pipeline for last 5 years, 21 to 26. That's the pipeline. So yes, you're correct that fresh installments are coming in that from that pipeline. But the amount, as you see, it's only 200 million. It's a useful grant, but it's nothing fundamental. I think what Bangladesh, you have correctly pointed that the interim government has very close relationship with US. What Bangladesh needs, and I think we have discussed it in your show earlier, that is market access. Vietnam pays 5% tariff on RMG, while Bangladesh pays 17%.
Okay.
So what Bangladesh really needs from US is not charity, but the market access.
We're going to come to that.
We
will come to that as well. But Ayanjit Sen, the question is, if America is looking, or is America looking to now play a larger role in a dispensation which it is now more favorably disposed to, as against the previous dispensation of Sheikh Hasina, which had also made some very, very serious allegations against a possible American role in that region?
Well, yes, I think the American position definitely has changed. Vis-a-vis what was it during Sheikh Hasina's regime, and currently, for example, what happened today, the dispensation that they have given to the Bangladesh interim government. So that clearly, in a way, indicates the change in the American position. And also one more aspect important as to figure out whether this will precipitate in any way to do with further help coming in from countries which Bangladesh may not have expected or may not be expecting, but there may be some surprises on the way post this US decision.
You're saying it will open floodgates to more bilateral aid coming in for Bangladesh, right?
Yeah, that's something
but that's
which
exactly
I think
what Mohammad Yunus said he did not want.
But that's something which Mohammad Yunus can say he doesn't want it. But at the end of the day, the current Bangladesh economy, as it stands, of course, it's coming through debt all across, and there would be countries which would be ready to give some aid, but it all depends whether Yunus accepts it or not. That's a second point of action. But at least what the American disbursement, the decision that the Americans have taken today is definitely going to open the floodgates for sure.
Okay.
But it depends on
Mr. Sen, I'm going to come back to ask you about the India position on this. What should be New Delhi's options? But Dr. Rahman, talk to me about the fact that if America is looking to play a larger role, Mohammad Yunus is also looking to revisit his earlier position that he would prefer only multilateral agencies to fund Bangladesh's next phase of restoration of the economy, so to say. In the wake of these changes, where does this leave the Bangladesh-America relationship, And is it now completely transformed under Mohammad Yunus's tenure in just a couple of weeks?
So, as I said, that the aid or loans on its own, if I may speak frankly, I don't see will be fundamental in transforming Bangladesh. Bangladesh is competing in a global market with countries like
Relationship,
Vietnam.
America-Bangladesh relationship.
Yes, so I personally feel, yes, you can say that it is they have a special relationship now with the interim government. But if really US has to walk the talk in terms of proving its friendship, it will come down to far bigger questions concerning market access and what kind of tariff Bangladeshi products face in US market. Because
okay,
charity
I'm sure if there is larger
Bangladesh
alignment, some of these trade specific issues can also be ironed out. And that's not my question, sir.
That is
my
going to be the acid test for the government, because charity
These are trade-related, tariff-related specific issues. My question is slightly larger, which is that, Dr. Rahman, in just a couple of months, there's been a complete transformation in America's position as far as Bangladesh is concerned. Does this now impact Dhaka's relationship with New Delhi as well?
So I feel that there's that there has been tension cooking up in terms of how they see each other, but I don't feel in the larger spectrum, US, India, and Bangladesh can have a very adverse relationship, because at the end, if you look at the bipolar situation between China and US, Bangladesh will have a very strong interest to maintain good relationships with India, because at the end, that's our largest neighbor. So I don't feel, yes, US has improved its relationship with Bangladesh, but I don't think that will come at the cost of India's relationship. It is uncertain at this point, but I think it will improve in the future.
Ayanjit Sen, I'm running out of time, sir. Very quickly, what are New Delhi's options from here on, with America playing a much larger role in Bangladesh now?
Well, I think it's a two-pronged thing. First of all, I would say it's a wait-and-watch policy that New Delhi has adopted. And that's something which will continue for some time, because they want to actually gauge the current situation and what it would lead to in the near future, first. And secondly, to do with the fact that whether US is given, that's another thing. But India has already played a pivotal role as far as giving aid to Bangladesh is concerned in the past, near past as well. And from that perspective, I think it will only grow better, but all depends on what steps Delhi takes, because it's still a wait-and-watch policy.
Yes, wait-and-watch policy, or some would even call it New Delhi's strategic patience, because it has been very patiently waiting for things to stabilize in Bangladesh before it takes the next course of action. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking out the time and joining me on India Global. We slip into a very short break. We come back on the other side and talk more about China's maritime warfare. It is engaging with Russia for very intensive maritime drills and at the same time aggressively posturing against Philippines. What can India do? What lies ahead? We come back and talk more. Welcome back. You're watching India Global with me, Gaurie, Dwivedi. Now, the second debate that we are looking at today is the latest as far as China's maritime warfare is concerned. Its intent has been clear for the last decade, but in the last couple of days, it has pushed the pedal once again. There are two things that have happened. One, it has collaborated with Russia to come out with the most extensive maritime drills and naval drills between the two countries, and in fact, the biggest for post-Soviet Russia, so to say. Secondly, China is also once again posturing in the Indo-Pacific. It's been having skirmishes with Philippines the last couple of weeks, and there has been a latest instance there as well. So that brings us to ask two fundamental questions. One is, what should be the priorities as far as the Indo-Pacific is concerned? Remember, these exercises between China and Russia took place in the Sea of Japan, one of the four countries of Quad. US, Japan, India and Australia are the four Quad countries, and given that there's a Quad meeting that will take place next week on the 21st, Should this now be a key focus area for the four leaders? That's a big question that we are asking on India Global. Besides, what should be India's strategy for the Indian Ocean region where China has been looking to play a larger role? All right, let's open this up. Don McLean Gill, who's joining me from Manila. He's a geopolitical analyst with De La Salle University. Thank you so much, Don, for taking out the time. And we also have Mr. Shashank, former Foreign Secretary. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to me on India Global. In fact, let me start with you, Don. There have been multiple instances as far as Chinese Coast Guard hitting out on Philippines' ship. The latest indicates that Philippines may have even withdrawn from an island that falls within its exclusive economic zone. Are we going back to the same Scarborough Shoal area, Scarborough Shoal, all over again? And how does Philippines read this current situation? What are its options? How does it want to play the Chinese aggression this time around?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Ms. Gaurie. And of course, this is an important question, but we must understand that the Philippines has not withdrawn from the Escoda or Sabina Shoal, but rather the ship, the BRP Teresa Magbanua, which is the largest Philippine Coast Guard ship, merely returned to Manila due to the structural damages that China had caused it and the depleted supplies. But nonetheless, there is an alternative ship that is on its way to Sabina Escoda Shoal to maintain the Philippine presence there in its lawful exclusive
Okay, that's an
economic
important
zone.
clarification, but nevertheless, as things stand right now, how is Manila now playing it? Has it learnt its lessons from Scarborough Shoal? Is it willing to respond to China in the currency that it best understands? Talk to us about that.
Absolutely, Ms. Gaurie. And you have to understand that the Scarborough Shoal, the illegal occupation of China of Scarborough Shoal in 2012 was due to its ability to exploit the gaps in the Philippine response within its exclusive economic zone. But what happened here in the Sabina Escoda Shoal particularly was that the Philippine Coast Guard as early as April was able to recognize that China had plans to discreetly pursue land reclamation activities and research in that area. So it immediately sent its largest ship. The BRP Teresa Magbanua has been there since April, and China has been very frustrated about this because it wanted to occupy the area discreetly. But, we've shown light on its illegal tendencies.
Okay. Mr. Shashank, sir, let me ask you this. One is, of course, the Philippine aspect of it that Don is talking about in detail. The second is that these comes just days ahead of a Quad meeting that is scheduled to take place in New York, where the four leaders will meet. Will China's aggression in the Indo-Pacific dominate the Quad meeting now?
There is no doubt about it that China would be one of the important subjects of discussion, because Quad is a cooperation mechanism which we have tried to develop for the Indo-Pacific, and especially to counter Chinese muscle flexing. And Philippines is the most important case, where even though there was an International Court of Justice decision, but that was not accepted by China, and Philippines somehow, because of their own position that they were not getting that kind of support from the Americans and others, which they were expecting. So they decided to succumb to the Chinese pressures. I think what we have to do is to see how Quad can help strengthen the resolve of the neighbors of China, especially wherever they claim this 9-dash line, that they are able to take care of their territorial interests. India has been helping Philippines in some ways. Some of their BrahMos missiles, etc., and some other things which Philippines needs, they are being given to them. But I'm sure that there will be further discussion on this issue during the Quad meeting.
Ambassador Shashank, then let me ask you another question, which is around the fact that what about specific options for New Delhi? Because this is, of course, muscle flexing, some would say, is happening in areas that is not completely in New Delhi's backyard. But nevertheless, India is a very important stakeholder in the Indo-Pacific, and these do indicate clear muscle flexing and aggressive posturing by China.
Well, what we are finding is that this European struggle which is going on between Russia and Ukraine, and where Ukraine has been asking for longer range missiles to hit Russia in its interior portions, has been making Russia more and more dependent on China. And China feels that, well, it can count on Russian support and also do much more muscle flexing in the Asian region. I think India has to ensure that it has to continue with its supply lines of defense equipment, etc., from Russia. At the same time, it has to directly tell China that it will not accept any kind of muscle flexing from the Chinese side as far as India is concerned, and it will work together with the other Asian countries and as well as the Quad countries to see that if any kind of solution can be found, that China can behave more peacefully and accept the code of conduct which was accepted between the ASEAN countries and China.
Yes. Don, I think a lot of people say one of the biggest failures of America in the Indo-Pacific has been in its inability to deal with how China browbeat Philippines, and how it has been doing so, it continues to do so. Do you see that there could be greater dialogue, cooperation between America and Philippines in the wake of China's aggressive posturing in the Indo-Pacific?
Well, absolutely. You know, the failures of U.S. deterrence, particularly in the Western Pacific in the early 2000s, leading up to 2012, was not only a setback for the Philippines, but also a setback of the U.S. security position in the region, which China has been able to exploit. But now I think that the stakes have become too high for Washington to ignore what is taking place in the Western Pacific, in the West Philippine Sea. So interestingly, after the June 17th incident where Chinese Coast Guard forces cut off a finger of our Filipino sailor, the U.S. showed that it was more committed to escort Philippine ships, but it was in fact Manila that turned down the proposition temporarily. So I think that the U.S. is realizing that stakes have become too high to ignore.
Right. Stakes have become too high. What happened under Barack Obama's tenure should most certainly not happen anytime now. Ambassador Shashank, very quickly, so I'm running out of time, which is that this aggressive posturing comes at a time when there's some thaw between India and China on the border talks for the last 4 years. Explain to us, connect these two dots for us, sir.
Well, some defense experts have been saying that America is feeling somewhat ashamed that it has not come to the rescue of Philippines and Taiwan the way these countries were expecting the American support. So therefore, America has been trying to put China and India against each other in the beginning, so that Chinese attention is more towards the land borders and land conflict with India rather than towards the ocean side. India, on the other hand, feels that, well, look, there are other issues which are going on. China wants to become a superpower on the global scale. And therefore, India feels that, well, the land border disputes where China can be persuaded to withdraw from the areas, and our foreign minister has said that 75% evacuation has taken place. So India has to look after its own interests.
Right. Absolutely. India needs to take care of its own interests. We need to stand up to this aggression, and we've been doing so for the last 4 years relentlessly. Most importantly, China's maritime aggression needs to now be dealt with very, very severely and clearly. As I said, what happened during Barack Obama's tenure should be a lesson and a wake-up call and shouldn't happen again ever. All right, on that note, Don McLean-Gill and Ambassador Shashank, thank you so much for taking out the time and speaking to me on India Global. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition. Thank you so much for watching.